Hi everyone, welcome back to Just a Little Kiki. Today I'm so excited to share a fun and easy do-yourself project, making a cozy Christmas wreath. Whether you're decorating your front door, your wall, or even gifting it to a loved one, this wreath will definitely add that festive touch. Let's get started. For me, starting off with a clean base for a craft is usually the best move. So me having disposable tablecloths or anything that I can just take from that craft and get rid of usually is a good move. When I make wreaths, they tend to get a little messy just because there might be glitter involved, the greenery might come off, and sometimes the mesh ribbon is, so I just like to have that extra bit of reassurance that is a little bit more control. Here's everything we'll need: a wreath frame, mesh ribbon, some greenery, either real or faux, plus ribbon and extra touches like ornaments or bells. Feel free to customize with whatever you love. You'll also need something to attach the mesh ribbon to the frame. I'm using zip ties, which are cable ties, but pipe cleaners work just as well. I'll also be using a scoring board and a rotary cutter later in the video to help with precision, but scissors work just as well. First, we're going to start with the greenery. This is going to go on the inner part of the wreath frame. We are wanting to make sure we are wrapping the greenery around this inner circle as tightly as possible and around the entire area. The greenery that I'm using is from a previous order that I had, so it may not be as long, so I wanted to make sure that I had enough, but I'm just here just trying to stretch it to see that, it's trial and error, but most pieces usually do go across it. You can overlap it. The more you overlap the greenery, it kind of gives it the plush look that most greenery does go for. So it is ideal for you to overlap it to kind of give it a more fuller look. So I would say try to aim to overlap it. I was able to get it to somewhat overlap. So I was able to get the greenery around the inner circle secure with the zip tie securing it. Now we are going to the scoring board and my rotary cutter that I mentioned earlier. You can also, like I said, use scissors in this part. And we're just going to make sure that we're taking the mesh ribbon and stretching it out and cutting it as precise as we can to kind of get like some even cuts. You want to at least be about 12 inches because when you start to roll them or squish them, they kind of lose their fluff. So if you want it to be as full as how you see mine came out at the end, you will want to kind of stay within the 12. But if you want it a little bit less, you could probably go, I would say, probably no more than 6. Once I got all of the mesh cut, I went and I started doing the ribbon. The ribbon, I just wanted it long enough to where when I start to kind of hold it over later in the video, it's kind of overlapping the mesh ribbon, so that it can be kind of on top, so it can give the illusion that it was weaving through the mesh ribbon. So that was my whole idea. Whenever I'm making a wreath, usually only focus on the 3 rows. The 4th row, I usually don't tend to put anything on that row, but for this size wreath, I'll only use the 3. So for this one, we've already done the inner. So right now we're going to focus on the 2nd row, which I feel like is the primary row. So this one is where I feel like most of the, I call them either bundles, sections, curlies, whatever you want to call them, but this is where most of the mesh ribbons are going to be. So this is where you're going to get most of your volume at. When I'm putting them on, I want to think about what is going to be the top, what's going to be the bottom, where am I going to put the decorations. I'm very keyed on repetition and just how things are going to kind of lay. So my thought process of when I'm putting things on kind of tend to be that. So I'm kind of showing you how I made the first bundle. I'll go into details a little bit more in the video up closer on how I really do them, but I use a zip tie in the back, clean my zip ties at the end of the process. Some people like doing them at the same time. I feel like it's a little bit easier for me to just do them all at the end. Basically, I take it, I go through, and I just focus on trying to make sure it's housed on that particular row that I'm on. And I nestle the bundle in between that zip tie, and I make sure it's all in as much as I can fit in there. And I get it as firmly as possible. I don't want it too tight because sometimes I do like taking mine off, but I also want to make sure if I am gifting this to someone that it does sustain them taking it off, but also it weathering it if it's outside or anything in nature. So I was able to get all of the bundles onto the wreath frame and secure. I have one little section that I need to put on. I'm going to walk you through me assembling that. This is one with a ribbon on top of it. We just need to make sure that we're getting that into that little section right there. So the ribbon would go on top of the mesh, and that will go into that section. The mesh, we will need to make sure, I just like to have the ends kind of meet. So I kind of do this motion where you kind of like scrunch until you get to the other end. The more you kind of like push them, kind of get like that ripple effect, and then I repeat that onto the other side. And then once I get that base together and I get it to where I'm comfortable with holding it, that's when I kind of twist it a little and I put the ribbon on top of it. Sometimes it's a hit or miss. Sometimes I cut them too long, sometimes I cut them a little too short. It just kind of depends. I think that's just the process of making a wreath. This one, I kind of cut it right on the money, so it wasn't too short, it wasn't too long, it was perfect. Then we're going to put it onto that second row. Again, make sure when you're putting it on that you're taking that zip tie and you're attaching it directly onto the second row with the bundle. I also try to make sure I have zip ties that aren't too short, but also aren't too long. The longer your zip tie, it might be a little harder to manage. Once you get it attached, it's the same process like how I showed you earlier. The brown and white ones would work the same way as far as assembling them on. They're a little bit longer as far as length, but instead of them going on the second row from the inner, it will be on the third. So it'll be on almost the last row from the outer. So those will go right behind the ones that we just previously done. From there, I wanted them to kind of be in between the two styles I've already done, because I've done a red and brown one with and without a ribbon on top. So I kind of wanted them to be in between. So I didn't have that idea until after. So my original idea was nothing from when I got to this point. So sometimes you have to trust the process with crafting. You start off thinking one thing. I thought I was going to put red into this the whole time, and I did not use that red mesh that I even showed. So sometimes you go into it with a idea, but you kind of have to go with your gut. That was this process. I kind of decided against it. I do think the outcome was a little bit better. From putting the brown and white on, I kind of wanted it to balance in between and nestle with what was already there. So kind of give the effect that it was like wrapping in between the two meshes. Usually when I'm making wreaths, I try to focus on the top and the bottom, because I know those are the two places where I'm going to want to put in the hanger and also decoration. I want to make sure I'm putting the pieces around those areas a little bit more strategically to, one, fill it in, but also so I can make sure I'm putting the decorations and also have spacing for any additional things like the hanger to go on, or if I have a big ornament that wants to go in that placing, make sure I have enough space for it. When I got to this part, I wanted to be clear that I got that filled in. It was a little bit transparent than I expected. So I wanted to make sure that I am filling in the area that was missing space. Now my focus is on putting the ornament on, and I'm going to be using a longer zip tie just to make sure that I can get it on instead of using the shorter one that I've been using for the bundles. So the longer one is just to make sure there's more space, gives a little bit more flexibility. When I'm putting it on, I was a little bit concerned with having it on there and the zip tie showing, but what I was able to do was actually put the ribbon on top of that zip tie and then zip tie the ribbon onto the back. So now I'm just going to go and flip the wreath over and get all of those zip ties cleared off of the back. This is just to make sure it's clean. Even if you're keeping this wreath, I would still advise to clean the back. It just helps with the overall appeal of it, and it makes it look a lot neater. And there you have it. We have a completed wreath. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed crafting this Christmas wreath with me. If you tried this project, I'd love to see your creations. Please tag me on Instagram or any social media that you have. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more cozy crafts, and I'll see you next time. Bye.